We're here tonight at Brandon Theaters watching Spider-Man Homecoming, which is fitting because now he's home where he belongs in the MCU. I'm gonna say I'm one of the biggest Spider-Man fans you'll ever meet. Love Spider-Man. Thank you, Stan Lee, 1962. Amazing year, because we got Spider-Man. However, this movie for me is kind of like one of those damage control course correcting. This is the third outing for Peter Parker Spider-Man, okay? So, with all that said, they're gonna tweak some things and fix some things. It's kind of like when they did Batman for Batman Superman. They're like, you know his origins, go watch that. Same with this. You know his origins, go watch Maguire or Garfield. It's out there. So the movie does something that's kind of unique. I don't want to really give it away because I like how they did it. They introduced the beginning and then the middle and then they played it out. So how they went about that, I appreciate that because it's kind of like that's a new way of putting a character into a big universe that everyone kept saying, well, he's been there the whole time. Well, how has he been there the whole time? Oh, okay, cool. I love the fact that he's in high school. I love the fact he's a young little angsty teen. And I love the fact that every time he had his suit on, he's cracking jokes, saying little quips, one-liners, and being what Spider-Man was. Just kind of that guy that's like, when I got the suit on, I'm a badass, I'm fearless. I'm in your face. I'm getting in your head.
This is a somewhat popular opinion. I feel like Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man. I feel like Tom Holland is that nice, happy middle ground. He's a younger character, a younger take on the character, and I feel like it gives him a lot more room to grow with his powers and with the things that his new tools provide him as far as the suit that he gets during Civil War. I really enjoyed this film. It was very exciting to watch. They did a lot of cool, different things that maybe aren't necessarily super heavy in the other Marvel films. They kind of broke away from some of those tropes, some of the built-in arcs that they kind of have presented in some of their films, where you have that origin story and you have some of the additional things that come in the second film. They kind of broke some of that mold by walking away from the origin, saying, you already know what's happening, move on to the next step, let's see what's going on with this character.
I will say at the beginning of this review that Spider-Man is not my favorite superhero. As a matter of fact, probably the superhero I followed the least. The most I saw of Spider-Man growing up, I guess it wouldn't be growing up, but it would have been a Civil War story. He was a big part of the Civil War story, of course, in the comics, not the movies. That was the most I really saw of that character. I knew of him, everybody knows of him, everybody knows the basics of the character, but it wasn't something I read. I was more of a DC guy and then an X-Men guy, so I didn't really follow that specific character. With that being said, I have seen all the Spider-Man movies up to now. I saw the Tobey Maguire movies. We'll all just pretend that 3 didn't happen. I saw the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, and I actually enjoyed Andrew Garfield more than I enjoyed Tobey Maguire. So by saying that, half of you probably just skipped past my review anyway, but that's okay. That's what I was looking for in a Spider-Man, not really knowing the source material. That's what I enjoyed in the movie. And I will say that Tom Holland as Spider-Man, he's very charismatic. Everybody keeps telling me that the reason that Andrew Garfield didn't work as Peter Parker is because he wasn't nerdy enough. He was too good looking, he was too suave. I disagree, and I feel that Tom Holland was kind of on the same level as him. While he did nerdy things like an uncomfortable high school student, at the same time, he was still pretty cool. I mean, the only reason he was really getting teased was because of the one dude, and I'll let you witness that for yourself. But I feel that he still had enough nerdiness and still had enough cool aspect to him as Peter Parker that he's a really likable character. I think the nerdiest thing we really saw him do, aside from some Legos, was his shirts. It seemed like every scene he had another shirt on that was freaking hilarious. It was some science joke. Aside from that, I didn't really look at him as being like the super nerd. His friend was more nerdy than he was, being the 15-year-old hacker that he is apparently. Now that being said, I still enjoyed him as Peter Parker. I enjoyed the kind of inner turmoil he was going through and the struggle he was going through. It gave some depth to the character and what was happening on screen. I liked him as Spider-Man. While I don't necessarily like everything he did as Spider-Man, I can't help but think that he was a little clumsy and kind of reckless, and I don't know, I'm not really sure how he gets credit, but that was just me.
Movie also gambled and put a couple villains in it. I've noticed sometimes with these movies, 2 is too many. This one had 3. One of which, the Tinkerer, he's just making gadgets, Vulture, obviously, and Shocker. And the way they go about it, perfect. It wasn't even that hard to follow. You got it. Group of bad guys. Cool. Vulture, not like an A villain, but Michael Keaton, something about him. Ever since 1989 Batman, the dude is, I love watching him. Everything with being the Vulture. When you first see it, the green eyes, the mask, the mechanical claw they put to it, it's a little scary, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of like that's kind of frightening. That's not like your goofy old guy sucking youth out of people or a sassy businessman in the Ultimate Timeline. Vulture, loved it, so I appreciate it that they kind of revamped a villain that actually formidable.
A really cool performance from Michael Keaton. He was a very exciting villain to watch. Someone that was a little more gritty and grounded than his character was in the comic books. And it was cool to see how they took, some of the things from the other MCU mythos and built it into this character to make him what he was.
The movie is extremely entertaining, I will give it that. From beginning to end, there are laugh out loud moments. I got emotional in one moment, which is always a good sign. I will say the strongest part of this movie, in my opinion, was not Tom Holland as Spider-Man. It was Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I have been waiting for the Marvel movies to do a good villain, a villain that has layers, a villain that has motivation, a villain that is there and you believe what they're doing. They're not just mustache-twirling evil. I don't count Loki, because Loki's not really a villain. He moves in and out, and he's almost written like a hero in some ways. But the pure villains in these movies, they're horrible in the Marvel movies, and I feel that Michael Keaton broke that mold, and I really like that. I really dug his character in this. And when you first see him, it's going to give you something that really makes his character work. And I hope that you appreciate that as much as I did, because I really appreciated the way they opened his character.
Some of the beefs I have with the movie, I don't want to go into them specifically because it might ruin it. If you know me on Facebook or in the comments, we can have conversations down there or whatnot, and I'll gladly tell you certain beefs that I had. There were some changes that were made. I didn't particularly care for them, but I understood why they had to do it. I got it. I understood that, so it's not one of those Civil War came around. I understood why they had to do things the way they did. Same with this. I got it.
Overall, I felt like the visual effects were completely up to par as per normal with anything you normally would see in the MCU. I feel like the moments that were more of the computer-generated heavy scenes, those were just as entertaining as they always are, but I felt like the scenes where, it was just Tom Holland kind of in the suit, just existing and being, I felt like those were some of the coolest scenes to watch. And I felt like some of the characters that they kind of added to the story, like he has almost kind of like a little sidekick kind of a thing as far as like a friend, and the things that they're doing with Aunt May, I feel like those are also entertaining to watch. Overall, like I said, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to see it several times in theaters, guaranteed. If I had to give it a score, I'd probably give it a 9.5 out of 10. Not a completely perfect movie, but as far as outings for Spider-Man are concerned, this is up towards the top. This is going to, this is a great building point for them to continue to add him into the MCU, and I'm really excited to see what they do next.
Everybody goes to Spider-Man movies so they can see the web slinger making quips and making jokes as he goes through town, and that's there. I mean, that aspect of him is there. I don't feel that there was anything in this movie within the course of Spider-Man that was added that was way better than the previous two iterations of Spider-Man at their core. Obviously, having the Avengers and having Tony Stark and all of those aspects are going to take advantage of that, but I don't feel that fundamentally this character was like head over heels done better. I feel that the script was written better, the villain was better, everything surrounding him was better, making it a better movie than the Tobey Maguire ones in my opinion, but I don't feel that they fundamentally changed Spider-Man that much. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, if you were hoping they were just gonna throw the other movies out and start completely over again. I really don't feel they did that. I feel that they took the parts that worked and they kind of put them together and they kind of created from there, and now you have this Tom Holland Spider-Man. I do feel you should see it though. If you are someone that has seen the other two iterations or is enjoying the MCU, there's really no reason to skip this movie. The character is pretty much universally loved and they did him well. It is a fun ride. I'm going to give this movie a 8 out of 10. You know what? No, I'm going to give it a higher score than that. I'm going to give it a higher score than you did. I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10. And the reason I'm giving it such a high score is I really like the villain. And I know that's not normally what people go to the movie to see. They go for the hero in the Marvel movies. But I really appreciated this villain and what they did with him. Not only was the way they translated a kind of cheesy villain really cool, but he also just has an amazing backstory and motivations and the way he carries himself. And I mean, it was Batman as the Vulture. I'm all about that. That's just awesome.
All in all, the movie was really impressive. I'm really happy Sony and Disney, all that, were able to make a deal. I want to see more of that. That's a cue to you, Fox. Go on ahead and send your characters over. Let's just have one big happy Marvel family. We all fly the same color. Movie for me, I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10. I did like it. I laughed a lot. There's 2 credit scenes, one halfway, one at the very end. Just stay to the end. It's worth it. I promise. Wouldn't steer you wrong. Just because I like to see people fight about it, question for you. Out of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, which Spider-Man do you like? Why or why not? Throw it down there below. Go ahead and like this video and favorite it. Hit that subscribe button. By doing that, you get more reviews like this, plus throwbacks, other shenanigans we do on the daily and weekly. And remember, guys, you heard it here at The Source.